this issue. You know, lately it has become pretty clear that a fair number of people who passionately defend the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, defend that amendment with very little regard for the First Amendment. That's the right to free speech. And I want to be very specific here. More than 100,000 people signed this petition on the White House website to deport a friend of mine, a guy I work with here at CNN, Piers Morgan. And they're taking aim at him because he's a British citizen and because he has very strong views on gun control. Piers wants background checks, he wants more money for mental health treatment, and he wants more control over assault weapon sales. And since Newtown especially, he has been making that position clear again and again. And last night, Piers tried to have a conversation with a talk show host who spearheaded that petition to kick him out of this country. And I want to show you how that conversation went.
Why do you want to deport me?
Well, we did it as a way to bring attention to the fact that we have all of these foreigners and the Russian government, the official Chinese government. Mao said political power goes out of the barrel of a gun. He killed about 80 million people because he's the only guy that had the guns. So we did it to point out that this is globalism, and the mega banks that control the planet and brag that they've taken over, in Bloomberg, AP, Reuters, you name it, brag that they're going to get our guns as well. They've taken everybody's guns but the Swiss and the American people. And when they get our guns, they can have their world tyranny while the government buys 1.6 billion bullets, armored vehicles, tanks, helicopters, Predator drones, armed, now in U.S. skies, being used to arrest people in North Dakota. The Second Amendment isn't there for duck hunting. It's there to protect us from tyrannical government and street thugs. Take the women in India. Your piece earlier on CNN I was watching during Anderson Cooper's show didn't tell you that the women of India have signed giant petitions to get firearms because the police can't and won't protect them. The answer is, hey, wait a minute, I have FBI crime statistics that come out a year late, 2011. 20+% crime drop in the last 9 years. Real violent crime, because more guns means less crime. Britain took the guns 15, 16 years ago, tripling of your overall violent crime. True, we have a higher gun violence level, but overall muggings, stabbings, deaths, those men raped that woman in India to death with an iron rod 4 feet long. You can't ban the iron rods. The guns, the iron rods, Pierce, didn't do it. The tyrants did it. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns. My family in the Texas Revolution against Santa Anna, my family was at the core on both sides starting that because Santa Anna came to take the guns at Gonzales, Texas. Pierce, don't try what your ancestors did before. Why don't you come to America? I'll take you out shooting. You can become an American and join the Republic.
That was a very long answer to one question, which is, why do you want to deport me? I'm still not sure that we entirely got the answer to that question, but the man he wants to deport is on the telephone with me now. Hi, Piers.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I'm okay. I guess I want to ask, how are you? That was quite an interview last night, and I'm curious as to what you think the takeaway is for everyone who was watching.
Well, honestly, I mean, he's now trending worldwide on Twitter and has been for pretty much since the show went out, and I can't think of a better advertisement for gun control than Alex Jones's interview last night. It was startling. It was terrifying in parts. It was completely deluded. It was based on a premise of making Americans so fearful that they all rush out to buy even more guns. It showed no compassion whatsoever to the victims of gun shootings. And, you know, the kind of twisted way that he turned everything into this assault on the Second Amendment is exactly what the gun rights lobby people do, and it's a lie. It cannot be allowed to continue. They have to be confronted and challenged, and occasionally, as with last night, I think silence was the best weapon against him, because he just dug himself an ever bigger hole, and the general reaction, I think, has been one of real horror that somebody with such a voice, a platform as Alex Jones, he has millions of Americans listening to his show every week, and he spouts this kind of dangerous nonsense.
So at the same time, there are a lot of people, as you mentioned, who do listen to him and do agree with him and are fearful that someone's going to take their guns away. I know you really couldn't get a word in edgewise. I watched the interview live last night. I wanted to hear your point that you were making. What is your point? Do you think, and supporters of yours, think that all guns should be taken away from Americans?
No, look, I mean, I honestly believe the only way to ever rule out any gun murder is to remove all guns. But that is not a practical solution to America's problem. There are 300 million guns in circulation. You're never going to get those out of circulation. So you have to be realistic in the goals and in what you're trying to achieve. What I've noticed since I've been on air at CNN, nearly 2 years now, it'll be 2 years next week, is there has been a proliferation in the scale of mass shootings, a sort of horribly familiar pattern of deranged young men in particular getting their hands on these AR-15 military-style assault weapons and committing these terrible outrages. I mean, the Aurora movie theater shooting was the biggest single shooting by a single shooter in the history of the United States. And within a few months, we had the biggest shooting at a school in the history of the United States. And yet the reaction is a week or two of mourning, a bit of chatter about gun control, and then America goes back to normal. Meantime...
Actually, Piers, there's one more reaction. There's more reaction. People go out. There's more reaction. A lot of people go out and they actually purchase assault weapons, fearing that there's going to be an outright ban on it. This is my real
problem with the way the debate is framed by the gun rights people. I have absolute respect for any American who wants to exercise their rights under the Second Amendment to have a firearm at home, a pistol or a gun, a handgun, to protect themselves and their family. There are numerous incidents you can point to where that has potentially saved a life, and I respect that. I believe that is what the Founding Fathers probably intended with the wording of the Second Amendment. However, I see no reason, and I come from a military family. Many of my relatives have served in the British Army. They are as aghast as I am that in America I can go to Walmart, for example, and I'm not allowed to buy 6 packets of Sudafed or a Kinder Egg or various types of French cheese because they're all considered too harmful to my health potentially. But I can buy an AR-15 assault weapon. I can get on the internet, buy 6,000 rounds of ammunition. I can buy a magazine that can hold 100 bullets, and I can then go to a church or a school or a movie theater or a shopping mall, and I can kill as many Americans as I want to in the space of a few minutes. This madness has got to stop.
As you continue,
if it makes me unpopular with a section of the American gun rights lobbyists, well, it's about time somebody was unpopular with them. America's politicians have been cowed into a shameful silence.
That's where I want to go next. That's where I want to go next.
Got to be the tipping point.
I literally am out of time, but I have to go there next. The White House actually responded to this petition. That's, I think, over 100,000 petitions to have you kicked out. They have to respond to this. This isn't a joke. What did they say?
Well, it's very interesting. I thought Jay Carney, the White House spokesman, said 2 things. One, that they would be making a formal response. So President Obama will decide whether I'm going to be deported or not. But I thought there was a clue, perhaps, to that decision-making thought process in the second part of the statement, which said that they wanted to remind people that they respect the right of freedom of expression, which is, of course, a constitutional right under the First Amendment. And there is an irony here, actually, about people who want to deport me for supposedly attacking the Second Amendment, and yet that would in itself be a flagrant breach of the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, expression, particularly with the press. It's noted there. And I think that this debate has to be had. It has to continue. It cannot be allowed to die just because a story fades out after a couple of weeks. There will be another mass shooting in America in the next few months, and we all know this. And the answer to Sandy Hook is not to do nothing. That is a moral and ethical
I'm flat out of time.
Of any kind of responsibility.
I'm flat out of time, but I cannot wait for tonight's program because I know you've got more coming. Piers, thanks for doing this with me. Thanks for talking to me.
Thanks, Ashley.
And I said it, tune in tonight because Piers has the fallout from the interview that you just saw with Alex Jones, and it starts at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on CNN.